just took a penis in my butt. I just wanted something I could feel.
Judging from the last video, some of you might be thinking that I'm an unoriginal hack who ripped off Unique Nemosaurus, and what I have to say is... In all seriousness, for those of you who didn't read the description, I had the entirety of the recordings for my video done before he even posted his, and I went Bigfoot hunting in the woods. That went more successful than I expected. In fact, we have actual footage I am proud to display on this channel.
Shoot me, human! Shoot me!
Oh, I will, you foul creature of the night.
You'd be granting me peace.
Why's that? Keep you from eating more babies?
What in the name of all the traits are you talking about, human?
You eat babies. You have to survive. Everyone knows that. Ain't your fault.
Back on track. The reason why I bring up Unique Nemosaurus is because I made something that is going to be seen as riding off the coattails of someone else, even though I put in my own original thought into it, while coming to similar conclusions as he had. So instead of reviewing something that is overly popular, I think that would be a lot more interesting for me to review something very niche. And what better game to review than one of my favorite JRPG series on the DS, Etrian Odyssey. Fucking cunts always stealing my ideas. So today I'm going to be reviewing an anime whose audience interest died off rather briskly. I'm of course talking about Rising of the Shield Hero. And in today's episode of George Floyd Anime Reviews, we'll be going over why this show is the absolute fucking worst at what it does.
What the hell is this?
Now that we've got the dislikes from diehards out of the way, let's get on to the actual review. Rising of the Shield Hero is a Chinese romantic comedy about a young princess who accuses a man of committing surprise love, turning him into a dollar store guts. But for the sake of good faith criticism, onto a serious summary of the show. The series starts off with a protagonist who knows the basic premise of isekai, as he reads a lot of light novels.
My life is like a video game, trying hard to beat the stage, all while I am still collecting coins.
He is transported to another world as one of the four heroes, who is meant to save it, from threats called waves. Not long after he arrives, he is accused of raping one of his party members, which leaves him ostracized by the people he is meant to protect. Though the series is somewhat stagnant as of now, since the anime hasn't had an episode in almost 3 years, there have been a lot of critiques of the show, and so as to differentiate myself from other critiques, I thought that it would be interesting to bring up another piece of media with a similar premise to compare it to. Thomas Vinterberg's The Hunt, starring Mads Mikkelsen.
Is that a mild seizure?
That doesn't seem to bother you.
I said it was mild.
For breaking the law, breaking the world, coercing.
Though these pieces of media differ in terms of both genre and medium, the basic premise and goal of both of them is relatively similar. Both of them show the dangers of mislabeling somebody as having committed sexual misconduct, and both of them portray mob justice as consequentially evil. So because of the similarities between these two pieces of media, I will be comparing and contrasting how both handle their plot points and themes. With all that in mind, I highly recommend that you watch The Hunt blind before watching this video, since it will spoil the plot. Watching Rising of the Shield Hero is also recommended before watching this video. Not because it's a good piece of media or anything, it's just that you shouldn't form your opinions of a piece of media entirely off of what some idiot on the internet says, you fucking sheep.
Can I eat the glizzy? Every gay girl laugh my ass off.
Both pieces of media have a decent enough establishing of their expected world that the story will take place in, and the main character will witness. The differences that stuck out to me when revisiting both of them is the establishing of relationships. The opening scene of The Hunt establishes a positive relationship between Lucas and all the male members of his village. The beginning parts of the movie also show that he is a very compassionate teacher, who takes very good care of his students. In terms of specific relationships, it establishes his relationship to his childhood best friend, the student who accuses him initially, as well as his son, who is under the custody of Lucas's ex-wife. In Shield Hero, Naofumi is transported to another world where he knows nobody. This makes Naofumi's betrayal a lot less impactful, since, though we would expect the heroes to be revered, it is still the first episode. Of course, the people of the kingdom would rather believe their princess as opposed to some random person from another world. The fact that he is not a native of this world contributes to nobody believing in him, making the effect of his rape allegations on his life less meaningful. You could just have the character be ostracized for being the shield hero, which is briefly mentioned as a motivation by the king in the series anyways, and most of the plot will be unchanged. Would this reasoning for ostracization be very archaic? Sure. But this does take place in another world, and this other world doesn't believe that you can fill a double gulp cup with Slurpee.
No way, buddy. No fucking way. You cannot use the double gulp cup for the fucking Slurpee. This right here. This is Slurpee cup. You use this
every time. Every time you make a big deal about it, I always pay for it. What's wrong? You and my friend, let's be friends.
This one is the Slurpee cup.
I don't care about your Slurpee cup. Look what you did. You made a mess. Now it's all on you. You went too far.
As for establishing relationships to be challenged, you can have it so that at least one of the other heroes is a close friend of his, to know that he wouldn't do the things he is accused of, while also showing that that person has bad experiences with people whom they trust taking advantage of other people sexually. Another thing that you can do is use the fact that the heroes come from different versions of Japan to your advantage. The conflict can be one of ideological justice, stemming from the fact that all their histories are so drastically different that there's a high probability that the winner of World War II is different for each of their realities. The obvious dichotomy to have the heroes stand in for is guilty until proven innocent versus innocent until proven guilty. But that leaves one more hero, excluding Naofumi. Since we're going with dichotomies here, we would first need to sum up Naofumi's ideal, and then find a refutation of it. I think that his ideals can best be summed up as, I will try to do good in spite of villainous optics entrapping me, whilst not displaying hubris about my nobleness. The thematic counter to this would be, Alright, let's fuck shit up. If you want to lead into an ideological conflict on how justice should be viewed, make the heroes represent innocent until proven guilty, guilty until proven innocent, and reform above all else. Or you can make it a more nuanced take on justice. I don't know.
Your fucking moral compass is a roulette wheel!
Another problem I have with Shield Hero is the belief in the rape accusations. In The Hunt, there's an interrogation scene in which a child describes aspects of the male body when it is in action in shocking detail, leaving the audience and the characters horrified, since the description doesn't sound like the kind of thing a child could come up with on their own. Rumors of the event happening are spread around to adults by someone who is in a position of power at the kindergarten, who doesn't give any doubt to her students and doesn't give Lucas the ability to defend himself. On top of that, later in the movie, we learn that other children are telling similar stories about Lucas taking them down into his basement to perform illicit activities, and all of them describe his basement in perfect detail. In Shield Hero, the only allegations are coming from the cuntiest member of the royal family, with only her to testify, yet the heroes, who should have equal distrust for everyone in the new world that they're in, initially believe her. Potential fixes for this would include having one of the heroes testify as well, or having mine use gaslighting magic, a completely fictional construct often cited in our world. One of the defenses to this critique is that the other heroes see this world as a video game, and therefore see everyone else as an NPC. This would be a good defense, on the off chance that all of their universes didn't have any games with morally ambiguous choices in them, or deceptive storytelling. Though the accusations in Shield Hero serve to initialize the world as opposed to pay off to a setup, they could have been structured a lot better than they were. In The Hunt, Lucas's best friend Theo threatens to shoot him and actively shuns him after the rumor about Lucas is spread. He later tries to approach Lucas after Lucas is bloodied and beaten out of the supermarket, but he is stopped by his wife. Lucas's son, Marcus, believes in him and tries to help him by buying groceries from a supermarket that banned him, and just being there in general to reassure that he believes in his father, along with Marcus's godfather, who helps Lucas on a legal level. In Shield Hero, the first person to believe Naofumi is the blacksmith who gave Naofumi the gear that Mine stole from him. Others who believed him earlier than most include Raftalia, a demi-human he buys as a slave at the start of the series, who fights as his sword, Philo, a chocobo raised by him at birth, Malti, the younger princess of the kingdom and the queen of the kingdom. Though the relationship between Marcus and Lucas shares similarities to Naofumi's relationship to Raphtalia, due to the solace they provide for their protagonists for their respective series, I find the latter slightly more interesting. The relationship grows from a basic necessity for survival to a reciprocated respect for each other's talents. However, the beginning of the relationship is still integral to the series. Naofumi starts off having to use a slave seal on Raphtalia, which inflicts physical pain on her if she disobeys him, and she will die if he dies. In episode 4, she gets the seal removed, but she gets it back again in episode 5 to show the amount of trust and respect she has for his decision-making. Both Marcus and Raphtalia share an instinctive response to the injustices they witness, though I found Marcus's active response against injustice to be a bit more compelling. Marcus decides to confront Clara in person and resist being taken out of her house while threatening violence against her, a kindergartner. This is a good way of showing Marcus's childishness due to the way that he wants to go about solving the issue, as a result of his lack of desire for understanding others, since he already knows what he thinks is the truth. This is in stark contrast to Lucas, who approaches the adults of the situation without showing a confrontational attitude initially. The contrast between how Naofumi and Raphtalia go about addressing accusations is that Naofumi pretends like he is an asshole while objectively helping the people, whereas Raphtalia sings his praises to try to convince others of his innocence, and she only responds to others with threats of violence in a situation immediately after Naofumi is accused. Both of their methods actively serve to lift up Naofumi's reputation. On the other hand, Marcus's immature methods only serve to tarnish Lucas's reputation, as the village people will also have the idea that Lucas used his own son as an attack dog on Clara, as opposed to Marcus having done what he did out of his love for his own father, adding a layer of complexity to his love. Onto a friendship that has no real equivalent in Shield Hero, Theo. Theo describes Lucas as his best friend at the beginning of the movie. He even goes as far as to tell Lucas that he knows when he lies. Problems, then, understandably arise when Clara's accusations come up, and he is forced to choose between his daughter and his best friend. Keep in mind, he has a wife and a son, and these people would look down upon him and would likely want him to be distanced from the family via divorce and restraining order, so he begrudgingly chooses his family and threatens to shoot Lucas in the head. Later on in the movie, he sees his former best friend walking along outside of the grocery store, bloodied and beaten. He wants to help him in some way, however, his family forces him to stay in the car as they watch this man treated like garbage, causing Theo to tear up. They see each other again at the climax of the movie, the church scene. Just like last time, all Theo can do is watch since his family is right next to him. Him and Lucas exchange looks at each other while the children's choir is singing a Christmas song. Lucas perceives this as Theo mocking him, so he gets up and punches him in the face multiple times before asking him to look him in the eyes and ask what he sees.
Painting. Painting. Painting.
However, contrary to what Lucas says, Theo does see something that Lucas cannot. A man broken by society, like he was worse than a feral animal. So on Christmas night, against the wishes of his entire family, he goes to Lucas's house with food and alcohol in hopes of reconciling with his old friend. In The Hunt, the village people are the antagonists of the movie, motivated by the ideal of preemptive justice for those who are typically seen as innocent in society. This leaves Lucas unable to do anything until his trial, and, even then, almost everyone doesn't believe in him, even though there is objective proof that nothing illicit happened between them and any other kindergartners. The film ends with Lucas seemingly having repaired his relationship between the village, and Marcus getting his hunting license, so everyone at the pond at the start of the movie is there to celebrate. This is then cut short in the final scene of the movie, where someone, presumably Clara's brother, shoots Lucas and misses. Side note, I've been pronouncing Clara's name the entire time wrong because American accent. The ending shows that, though they put up a facade of accepting him back in, the people still think that he is guilty, or at least capable and willing to do all the things he is accused of, emphasizing the extent to which an unreliable rumor can permeate the minds of people. I know I said that it would be unfair to compare the endings because Shield Hero as an anime has none, but the ending serves to further characterize the antagonist, which is what this section is supposedly labeled if future me doesn't fuck up. In Shield Hero, the antagonist is also the social structure which the protagonist is fighting against. which is pretty much everyone in the kingdom because nobody believes in him. It's also done with rather little nuance to it. Stories of false accusations have existed since at least Count of Monte Cristo came out, and they've been done a lot better than this. So, how does Naofumi go about resolving his issue? Well, he kind of doesn't. Sure, he helps out people in the village who will have a more positive view of him and are more likely to believe him, but the overall issue seems to be resolved when the queen declares that the king and the princess are guilty of falsely accusing Naofumi. Now, this could leave some room for nuance, like I stated in The Hunt, where, although Lucas was declared innocent in a court with an undeniable defense, people still thought that he either did it or is willing and capable of doing it. But no, the most we get is, oh no, mine tells Moriyasu that Shield Hero is using mind control magic. A conflict that has to do with a central antagonist as opposed to a broad one which the series seems to want to explore. Speaking of central antagonist, Shield Hero also has another antagonist, Glass. Glass's motivation is to save her own world. However, because of the situation she is put in, she has to destroy another world as part of a game. I think that this is a more interesting conflict in the series, though I will admit that it does extend the other conflict. Most people in this world think that Naofumi is a piece of shit. The king foreshadows that there had also been a conflict with the previous Shield Hero, which is why he hated him so much. However, regardless about how they feel about Naofumi, they are still a somewhat functioning society. So, should this one fatal flaw determine the fate of this entire civilization? Well, how severe are the effects of the flaw? It's like a Sodom and Gomorrah issue. Sure, nobody in the city may be free of sin, but how severe is the collective sin of the city? Unlike Naofumi, Glass is willing to live and die for her world. He wants to escape his because he was unwillingly put in there. Which one of these deserves salvation more than the other? I really like this concept, and from what I've heard, Season 2 is going to explore Glass's backstory a lot more. All that I can really say about what I hope for in this next season is that it shows what Glass's values are, as well as the flaws of both her character and her world, as opposed to some Last of Us 2 level sympathy bait. The most resonant scene in The Hunt is the church scene that happens in the climax of the movie. This is the scene where he punches Theo and says, "Look in my eyes, look what I have. Nothing." Another important scene is when he's at the supermarket and he headbutts the butcher. This contrasts with his initial passivity, showing how much he's broken down. Naofumi has similar moments, including when he's trying to sell balloons to one of the guys, but he brings some of them over himself to attack them so that he gets a fair deal, as well as when he brings orange balloons into the fight against Motoyasu, as noticeable by anybody who has watched both series or has just heard their summary right now. From this, you can already see a stark contrast. Naofumi immediately breaks because of society, as opposed to Lucas, who, over time, slowly but surely snaps.
Oh no, the end is near.
I'd like to start off the conclusion by saying, after having rewatched Shield Hero, I have gained a new appreciation for it. I still felt as though the parts that I thought were initially lacking are still lacking, though to a lesser extent than I initially remembered. Though I can still peer through all of my critiques and whatnot, and see why people enjoyed the show so much, even though it's really a 6 out of 10. Let's go!